Hi, we are Ethan Clarke and Sofia Mendes. Welcome to Magic in the Mundane. Welcome to this custom-tailored deep dive created specifically for you.
Yeah, we know you love digging into the underlying mechanics of a story, finding those hidden gears turning beneath the surface plot.
Exactly. You want the deep insights without the information overload. And our mission today is to unpack a truly fascinating premise from the 2024 novel Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross.
It is such a brilliant book. We are going to explore how this story takes two completely ordinary journalists
Yes.
and just drops them into a war-torn world.
Right, a world where magic lives at the terrifying edges of reality. We're going to examine how these two navigate profound themes of duty, frontline survival, and, well, the immense power of the written word.
Which requires a fundamental shift in how we usually view power dynamics in a fantasy story.
So picture a World War I trench for a second. The artillery is deafening, the mud is freezing, and, soldiers are losing their lives over mere inches of shattered ground.
Oh, it's just incredibly bleak.
Yeah, deeply human, gritty, and bleak. But there's a twist in this particular war. The generals commanding the slaughter from the shadows, they aren't human.
No, they're ancient, unseen gods.
Right. Today, we are looking at a world where magic isn't a weapon you wield. It is basically a brutal weather system trying to kill you.
Which completely subverts what we usually expect from a fantasy setting. Because, usually magic is the spectacle.
Oh, totally. It's the fire-breathing dragon or the wizard leveling a mountain.
Exactly. The magical elements are pushed to the absolute forefront, and the human characters are almost just vehicles to showcase that spectacle.
But not here.
No, not at all. What we are looking at today is a masterclass in grounded fantasy. The magic is woven so quietly into the fabric of a very human war.
It feels more like an environmental hazard than a superpower.
Yeah, perfectly put.
Yeah.
And before we can even look at our two main journalists, we really have to establish this deeply unconventional war zone they're walking into.
Because the conflict happening in the background isn't a standard territorial dispute, is it?
Not at all. It isn't about borders or resources. It is a clash heavily influenced by divine interference.
Right. These ancient forces are secretly manipulating outcomes. So the battlefield is simultaneously a physical bloodbath and a metaphysical chess match.
Which is just a terrifying concept when you really think about it.
It is. Imagine you are a war correspondent covering a grueling real-world conflict. You are in the trenches, focused entirely on just physical survival, dodging shrapnel, securing rations, surviving the cold.
Just trying to make it to the next day.
Exactly. But slowly, this creeping realization sets in. You start to notice that the weather itself, like a hurricane or a sudden unnatural blizzard, it seems to possess a consciousness.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Not only does it have a mind, but it is actively playing a strategic game with the troops on the ground, maneuvering them into traps.
That is a phenomenal way to visualize the atmospheric dread of this setting. The magic alters the entire ecosystem of the conflict.
It just creates this pervasive, suffocating sense of paranoia.
Right, for both the soldiers and the civilians. When the unseen hand moving the military pieces is an ancient deity, the scale of the war stretches far beyond human comprehension.
You're not just fighting an enemy army anymore.
Exactly. You are fighting the landscape, the elements, and the rigged probability of your own survival.
Wait, let me stop you there, because something about this setup feels deeply contradictory to me.
Oh, how so?
Well, if you have literal gods and ancient forces pulling the strings from the background, doesn't that risk making the human conflict feel totally pointless?
That is a really valid question.
Because if a sentient hurricane is playing chess with you, human choices don't seem to matter anymore. How is that not just pure fatalism, where the reader and the characters just accept that the gods are in charge?
It's the ultimate trap of epic fantasy, right? But it is exactly what this story brilliantly avoids.
Okay, how do they avoid it?
The sheer, overwhelming scale of the opposition actually acts as a pressure cooker. It elevates the human stakes instead of erasing them.
Oh, I see. By keeping the gods hidden in the atmospheric background.
Yes. By focusing the camera tightly on the fragile mortals, the narrative shifts the defining question of the war.
So it is no longer about which immortal being will win this cosmic chess match.
Exactly. It becomes, how do everyday people survive, resist, and maintain their humanity when caught in the crossfire of massive, unseen metaphysical forces?
That makes a lot of sense. The human choices actually matter more because the odds are so astronomically stacked against them.
Right. A mortal deciding to stand their ground against an enemy soldier is brave.
But a mortal deciding to stand their ground when the literal sky is conspiring against them.
Is an act of profound, almost irrational defiance.
Which brings us directly to the individuals making those seemingly irrational choices.
Yes, our two young journalists, Iris and Roman.
Because the divine forces remain largely unseen, the true narrative weight falls squarely on them navigating the chaos on the ground.
And their dynamic forms the emotional and philosophical engine of this entire exploration.
Let's look at Iris first. Reading through the material, her motivation is so strikingly grounded.
Oh, absolutely. She isn't driven by some grand prophesied destiny to save the world.
No, she is relentlessly driven by responsibility. She is working tirelessly, just bringing the candle at both ends to support her family.
Fighting tooth and nail for her career in a society that is rapidly collapsing around her.
Her ambition is essentially a survival mechanism born out of a deeply ingrained sense of duty.
She's carrying the weight of her world long before she ever sets foot near a literal battlefield.
And contrasting her incredibly open, desperate drive, we have Roman.
Right. He is introduced as distant, meticulous, and heavily guarded.
He has constructed this very deliberate armor around himself that really has nothing to do with the physical war outside.
Exactly. He views the world through a lens of cynical detachment, keeping everyone at a safe, calculated distance.
And the only way these two polar opposites actually bridge that gap is through a deeply compelling magical mechanism.
The Enchanted Letters.
Yes. We are talking about correspondence that can cross impossible distances between them.
A letter slipped under a door or into a wardrobe, instantly finding its way to the other person.
It completely bypasses the physical limitations of the war zone, the front lines, and the military censorship.
Which is vital to understand. The mechanism of this magic isn't a portal they can step through. It is strictly a conduit for words.
And, crucially, their correspondence begins in total anonymity.
Right. They are sharing their deepest fears, their unvarnished hopes, and their rawest thoughts, without having any idea of the true identity of the person on the receiving end.
So it is basically magically encrypted DMs.
Yeah, that is actually a great way to put it.
But it makes me question the psychology of the magic itself. Why is it that total anonymity allows someone as fiercely guarded as Roman to actually open up?
That is the core of it, isn't it?
Like, is the magic in the paper actively compelling him to tell the truth? Or is it just the safety of being unseen?
It is definitely the latter. The magic facilitates the logistics of the connection, but it is the psychological safety of the anonymity that facilitates the vulnerability.
Right, because think about the heavy social armor Roman wears in his daily life.
Every interaction he has is weighed down by expectations, societal standing, and the sheer exhaustion of performing his guarded identity.
So when he writes to a nameless, faceless recipient, all of that baggage just evaporates.
Exactly. There is no immediate real-world consequence. There is no fear of judgment from someone who holds power over his daily life.
Because he doesn't know who is reading it. He doesn't have to perform. He can finally just exist.
And that is why the Enchanted Letters act as a literal plot device to move information across a deadly landscape. But they quickly evolve into a profound symbol of human connection.
In a setting where physical reality is being violently torn apart by armies and gods, a fragile piece of paper becomes an indestructible bridge between two isolated minds.
It demonstrates how communication itself can serve as a sanctuary.
Wow, yeah. When the physical world offers no safe harbor, people will build sanctuaries out of words.
And it is the strength they draw from this hidden, vulnerable sanctuary that directly fuels their professional courage out in the open.
The intimacy they forge in secret becomes the catalyst for their actions, as the war outside escalates to terrifying new heights.
Which catapults us directly into their professional lives on the front lines.
They are journalists in a war zone, but they aren't just filing standard casualty reports or lifestyle pieces.
Not at all. In this world, reporting the truth is not merely a profession. It is an active, incredibly dangerous act of rebellion.
They are basically treating the printing press like artillery. They aren't throwing fireballs, they're dropping truth bombs.
Exactly. Instead of aiming at the physical bodies of the enemy troops, they are aiming at the illusion of the war itself.
The information they uncover has the literal power to shift the balance of the war.
This is where we see the overarching themes of the story truly solidify. The fluid nature of identity, the immense sacrifice required to maintain integrity,
and the heavy, unforgiving cost of truth. Because in an environment where unseen forces are constantly warping reality, Loyalty is a moving target.
Absolutely.
I'm struggling with the mechanics of that power dynamic, though. Let's really examine this.
Okay, what's tripping you up?
In a world where ancient gods are literally manipulating physical reality, altering the landscape, dictating the weather, how does uncovering a human truth actually shift the balance of power?
I see what you mean.
Does printing an article in a newspaper physically stop a deity from crushing a city?
Well, it doesn't stop them physically, no. It starves them metaphysically.
Starves them. How?
In this magic system, the influence of these ancient forces is intrinsically tied to obfuscation and human ignorance.
Oh, interesting.
They operate like parasites, feeding on the chaos and the blind obedience of the mortal armies. The gods derive their strategic advantage from remaining unseen and unchallenged in the minds of the people they are manipulating.
Oh, I see. So the moment a journalist prints the unvarnished truth, they are shining a spotlight on the invisible strings.
Exactly. The human pawns suddenly realize they are being played.
And if the pawns refuse to march to the god's tune, the deity's metaphysical power supply is entirely cut off.
Precisely the mechanism at play. Exposing the divine influence strips away the god's primary weapon, which is deception.
It reorients the human armies and shatters the illusion that the war is a necessary mortal endeavor.
It proves a fascinating point that you can apply to almost any historical context. When the physical power dynamic is impossibly skewed against you, information becomes the ultimate equalizer.
But the danger of being the one to wield that equalizer must be astronomical.
Oh, it is practically a death sentence.
If a god realizes you are the person breaking their carefully constructed illusion, you instantly become a target of divine wrath.
That puts Iris and Roman in an unimaginably precarious position.
They are sitting at their typewriters knowing that the moment they hit print and expose a divine secret, they might be calling down the fury of a god onto their own heads.
That is the literal cost of truth the narrative explores. The characters are forced to confront agonizing choices.
Do you stay silent, preserve your own safety, and allow the slaughter to continue?
Or do you publish the truth, knowing it means sacrificing your anonymity, your security, and potentially your life?
Shining a light into the darkness guarantees that whatever is hiding in the dark will look back at you.
Which adds an unbelievable amount of tension to the narrative.
It really does. And nestled right in the center of this intense pressure cooker environment, surrounded by frontline journalism, ancient magical warfare, and the constant threat of divine retaliation, is a deep emotional romance between Iris and Roman.
Yes, the romance is central to the emotional core of the story, but it is crucial to note how it is handled.
Right, because usually in fantasy, the romance ends up hijacking the whole plot.
It really can, yeah.
You start with a fascinating global war, and by the middle of the story, the fate of the entire world takes a back seat to a love triangle or some manufactured misunderstanding.
It can feel deeply jarring and often trivializes the world building.
Exactly. So how does this story manage to keep their love story from undercutting the severity of the actual war?
It achieves that balance by making the romance the anchor of their resilience, rather than a distraction from the plot.
Oh, that makes sense.
It exists entirely within the brutal context of the war, and is severely tested by physical distance, forced secrecy, and the horrific realities of the battlefield.
So their love doesn't offer them an escape from the war.
No, instead, their connection is the very fuel that allows them to engage with the horrors around them.
In a world saturated with terrifying, unseen deities and relentless violence, knowing that there is one person who truly understands them provides the psychological fortitude required to make those terrifying choices we discussed.
Exactly. The writing style heavily emphasizes atmosphere, expertly balancing quiet, intimate moments of correspondence with intense, high-stakes military action.
So the love story isn't a divergence from the high stakes. It is the reason they are willing to endure the high stakes.
Right. The romance is just as fraught with vulnerability and danger as the frontline journalism.
It feels earned because they aren't ignoring the war to focus on each other. They are relying on each other to survive the war.
It offers an incredibly mature approach to magical storytelling. The magic, the enchanted letters crossing the battlefield, is used exclusively to highlight human frailty and human resilience.
It strips away the pomp and spectacle of traditional fantasy to focus on the quiet, desperate courage required to stay soft in a world demanding that you become hard.
It serves as a powerful reminder that empathy, the pursuit of knowledge, and the courage to document reality are not passive traits.
In the face of overwhelming odds and systemic manipulation, they are weapons of profound resistance.
Exactly. It makes a compelling case that even when the physical world is being torn apart by ancient forces, the most powerful act of rebellion might simply be two people deciding to be entirely honest with one another.
It really is a masterclass in blending the epic with the intimate. It takes the staggering scale of a divine magical war and shrinks the battleground down to the ink on a single page.
Yeah, blending grounded atmospheric fantasy with the heavy cost of truth.
And the beauty of connection through the written word. Before we wrap up today's deep dive, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, something that builds directly on the core symbol of this world.
The letters.
Yes. In the story, those enchanted letters represented a vital, indestructible lifeline in a broken landscape. Every single word mattered.
Because every word carried the weight of survival and profound vulnerability.
Exactly. But in our modern reality, we are saturated with instant, overwhelming, and often completely disposable communication.
Oh, definitely. We fire off dozens of texts while waiting for a coffee.
Right. Rarely giving a second thought to the medium or the message. What would happen if we treated our own daily messages with the same gravity?
That is a fascinating question to consider.
What if we approached our texts, our emails, and our digital correspondence with the same deliberate intention, vulnerability, and weight as an enchanted letter sent blindly across a war-torn battlefield? It might just fundamentally change the way we connect with the people in our lives. See you next week.
Flip the page, here we go. Magic world, steal the show. Clap your hands, feel the spark.